Welcome back to Track Talk. This is going to be a commentated game of 1871 that I just played live on the site. Been wanting to do some live play of 71, but it's just harder to find games, so this will be, I think, the first one on the channel. Regardless, it's going to be played by myself, Vivid Jar, and then Caffeine. And when we look at the auction here, we will see that the main line is the Georgetown, which is starting on the right-hand side here, and then the short line is the Charlottetown, which is probably the best company in the game, or at least usually very good. And then the other thing to note is that Union Bank is coming with a Alberton share in this game. When we look at the distribution of the privates, you can see that the peer ends up being fairly evenly distributed. You can't really get more even than that in a three-player game. So 2 players with 2, 1 player with 1. Vivichar is going to be leading us off. He has the short line, the Schreiber and Burpee, and the rail car. I have the main line, the Vernon River Bridge, and shipbuilding. Oh, also Hunslet. And then Caffeine has Union Bank, Royal Agriculture, and Merchants and Co. So when I was looking at this setup, I was pretty excited by the idea of being the short line president. I wanted to get the Charlottetown, but I was a little bit worried that I was not going to be able to get any of the exchange shares. And if you don't have any of the exchange shares, you are at high risk of losing the presidency. And in fact, even with one share, if someone else gets 2 of them, depending on how operating or priority works out, you could still be in danger. So that was my concern throughout this auction. That's how I went about this auction, was just trying to make sure, one, I ended up with the short line concession, and two, I got at least one of the exchange shares. All right, so VVGR is going to start us off, and he starts off right with the short line concession. We didn't talk about this. I don't know how he chose which one to start with, but I think that I've talked about this before. I think starting with some of the more valuable privates early can be useful. And the reason I say that is because the game state's a little bit nebulous. So people haven't necessarily solidified their positions and settled on what they're going to be bidding for. And as a result, you may be able to have 2 players valuing the same private and bidding them up a little bit, incentivizing a bidding war. So I go for the short line concession. As mentioned, I was pretty excited about that. Caffeine's going to fight me for it, and we end up taking it decently high. He bids me up to 185, which I was a little bit annoyed about, but he was price enforcing well. So this brings it to me. And here I'm seeing that I have 2 of the exchange shares, which is kind of rough because it's hard for me to end up with that in a 3-player game. So I'm going to try and leave those till late, in the hopes that maybe people will run out of cash and I'll be able to get one. We'll see if that works out or not. So I believe I put up the main line, yeah, and for the same reason that I just described, I'm hoping that maybe we'll get a little bit of a bidding war for it. Unfortunately, it doesn't go up very high. It's worth more because the shares are worth more, although the company's not as good. And it actually goes for less than what I paid for the short line. So already I'm off to a great start in this game. Caffeine's going to round us out, and he puts up the Union Bank. Union Bank is tricky. It can be very strong, but in this game it comes with the Alberton, and the Alberton is a bad company, one that may not float for a long time, which is not going to do the Union Bank any favors. So I really debated just passing here, but 125 for the Union Bank seems like it's probably really good, regardless of what it has. I mean, it always comes with a share of the main line, so that's going to pay. So I bid it once, but I was very afraid I was going to end up with 130, and then I wouldn't be able to price enforce very well for the rest of the auction. Luckily, Vivijar did overbid me there and wins it because I was not going to risk my luck again. We did comment during the playthrough that he was probably going to pass if I bid again, so I think I played that right. And that leaves him to put up a private, so we will see the railcar ferry. I bid on this. I'm not overly interested in it. I don't think the Georgetown is, that great of a company. But for a little bit over face, I'm willing to take it. And then more importantly, I just want to not give it to Caffeine for face. So he goes for 130. I pass. I'm up now, and I'm still hoping to get these exchange shares. I know I'm not going to get them both, but I'm hoping to at least ensure I can get one exchange share some point in the auction. It'd be great if I could get one of these, but I'm also looking at the Merchants and Co. from Caffeine as well. So I think I put up the Hunslet. Hunslet's good private. I really like the Hunslet, but I couldn't really guarantee that I was going to win it, and I was prioritizing the exchange shares over it. So that goes for 125. Caffeine, not a whole lot of cash left. which is not really helping me all that much. I need Vivijar to spend a lot more money for me to have any hope of picking up one of these exchange shares. Caffeine offers Murray, and I pass on that. Vivijar's up now. He put us up the Mount Stewart. Mount Stewart, in my mind, I'm thinking that the Mount Stewart's generally a decent company, likely to start. So if I'm going to have to take a pure share, which I'm looking at my cash and it looks likely that I will, I might as well bid for this one. So actually, I'll take it back. I pass on that. In retrospect, maybe I should have bid on it. Now I will put up the Alberton, fully expecting to get it because it's not very good, and I do. Caffeine doesn't have a whole lot of cash anymore, so he's not going to be contesting too much. So it's really between me and Vivijar. He puts up the Royal Agriculture Society. Vivijar bids for 115, and again, I don't want it to go for so cheap, so I think I put in a token bid here. I'm also hoping to not end up with the most cash because I'm seeing that Caffeine doesn't have enough money to bid on pure shares anymore, so I want him to go Vivijar's way if possible. So I do bid on that, and I win it. Vivijar puts up the summer side, and I think I'm happy to pass that away. Now it's between my two exchange shares, and remember I'm hoping to end up with one of these three at least. So I think I put up the cheaper one first, hoping to have a bidding war. Oh no, I put up the more expensive one first. I wonder why I did that. And that leaves Caffeine up. He puts up Saurus. Vivijar bids on it, and here I'm looking at the cash, and I'm just really not wanting to end up with the most cash. So I'll bid on Saurus, and that means that Vivijar will be forced to buy his Schreiber and Burpee. And now I'm hoping that I will be able to snag one of these exchanges. So Vernon River Bridge goes up, and since there's a bid on it, I am not going to be getting it, which realistically speaking, I don't think I should have expected to get it. Vivijar buys it for max, actually. And that leaves me to take the Merchants & Co., which I do. So I did achieve my goal of one of the exchange shares. And I think that this auction ends up being fairly balanced. Yeah. So here we are in stock round one. Vivijar passing, doesn't have enough cash for anything. In theory, either he or I could exchange shares, but I figure the revenue from the short line concession is going to outweigh, the revenue in stock round two. So I'll just hold on the concession, start it next time. Because of the way the Vernon Bridge works, I'm not too worried about people stealing my lunch in terms of getting track. So I don't feel too bad about delaying my start one operating round. Caffeine doesn't do anything, and we are into operating round one. Georgetown's up, and we'll lay pretty standard track, buying 2 trains. Pier is up. This is my company that I'm operating. I don't love the pier in general, but I will lay some free track down on Murray River. I'm basically just trying to incentivize people not to start the Mount Stewart because I'm hoping that I can grab the Charlottetown presidency and then also synergize with the Mount Stewart. So I'm going to build everything but the Mount Stewart basically, and then hopefully not have to worry about losing that par. I do buy a 2 here. Didn't have to buy a train. And in retrospect, maybe I should not have bought a train. You'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. Vivijar is up, doesn't have cash, and is passing. Because I didn't start the short line, I can now start the short line without having to do the exchange. So I buy the share, short line's floated. Caffeine is up, and we'll buy a GT. GT a little more attractive with the 2 trains going to be running in the next operating round, whereas the Charlottetown is going to be falling back. That leaves me second in priority, and we're into operating round 2. Georgetown's first up, and he's making his way presumably over to Peaks. Going to be blocked by the Vernon River, so don't imagine he's expecting to get into Charlottetown too quickly here. Runs his twos for 70, pays it. Charlottetown's first operation, I'm obligated to head west. And again, my long-term goal here is to end up with the Mount Stewart presidency. So I need to tread a kind of delicate balance here. I don't want to make the presidency too attractive by laying directly towards it, but I do want to leave myself options. So I'm starting to head over to Hunter River. I'm starting to learn that Hunter River is a pretty key choke, just because this is a fairly narrow part of the map. You have a double dit that doesn't upgrade, and then you have only 2 slots in these normal cities. So if you can get 2 tokens in Hunter River, you can be pretty assured of controlling access west, and more importantly, preventing the Western companies from getting any runs into the high value of Charlottetown. So I head there. And also with a sharp turn, I might be able to link up with Mount Stewart pretty easily here. But again, I don't want to make it too obvious that the Mount Stewart has good track potential. So I buy a 2, I buy a 3, and I buy extra trains here because 1, they're cheap, and 2, I'm running the pier. So I'm going to try and just get all the cash out of the pier into the Charlottetown, and then I'll be able to never withhold on the Charlottetown, hopefully get it up to a high stock value, split it, and then run away with the game. At least that's my game plan. So I lay some track on Summerside, again, just laying anywhere that isn't Mount Stewart. Surrey seems to be okay with just a little bit of track, so I'm also not eager to lay the Surrey track either. I run my 2, I pay it, and in retrospect, again, maybe I should have held it. Because 50% of this revenue is going to Vivijar and 50% to me. Not exactly. There's a caffeine share, but roughly speaking, I'm getting, a much lesser percentage of this cash than I could if I just withheld it and bought it over into the Charlottetown, which if it saves me a withhold is very lucrative. So I do buy the train out, leave $0 into the pier, and then we'll see if the pier actually gets to run these trains or not. Tranche opened up, and we'll see if anybody's interested in taking advantage of that. Vivijar, he's going to buy the Charlottetown, sees that it has good trains, potential for some decent revenue. So snags that. Interestingly, none of the shares have been exchanged yet, which is kind of bad news for me as the Charlottetown president. Again, I'm getting cash from the pier, but these exchange shares aren't doing all that much for me since they are not paying. Tracked, I'm up, and I will buy the Charlottetown as well. Not always the best idea to buy your own shares because they do pay into your company, but I was a little bit worried about the double exchange from Vivijar and then, him stealing the presidency if I didn't buy a share. Caffeine will join and buy Charlottetown, and that should leave everybody to pass. GT is up, heads to peaks, and is going to quit for now. Runs his 2 trains for 70, pays it, and will snag I believe the last 3 and the 4, so he opens up green. And he does that because now he can buy in his Hunslet, and he's going to be leader in the clubhouse in terms of net worth as a result of that. But he needs to make sure he uses his cash wisely in the next stock round. But that's why the Hunslet's so good, just getting that infusion of cash early in the game. Charlottetown lays Hunter River. Again, I was tempted to lay the sharp here, but I was just worried that that would be telegraphing a little bit too early that the Mount Stewart is a good start. And I'm not going to be the player, at least in this stock round, to get access to that tranche. I'm assuming that Vivijar is going to be floating. He can exchange 2 shares of the high value Charlottetown, sell them down, and then he'll have plenty of cash. So at least that was my thinking at the time. Run my 2 3s. Didn't actually have to drop that Hunter River token to run, but I was aware of the value of Hunter River as we talked about. Pays for 80. I'm going to buy a train out of the pier. Again, I don't care about the pier revenue. I just want to shuffle cash into the Charlottetown. So pier is going to just upgrade Summerside for a little bit extra revenue. Pays it and buys the 2 back out of the sea, or the Charlottetown, again, so that I can shuffle cash into this company without withholding. Vivijar, he is buying the Charlottetown into the Union Bank. I think that's the first share the Union Bank has been able to buy. I'm passing. This is going to put me in first slot for the Mount Stewart in the next stock round, assuming caffeine doesn't float, which is not really a safe assumption. So he sells out of the Charlottetown and the GT and floats the Murray River. But it's still important to go first because I will have my choice of companies, even though in theory Vivijar will also be able to float a company. I will be able to secure myself that Mount Stewart. I think the rest of the stock round is basically just the Murray River floating. It does, and I have priority deal. Georgetown's up, has access to green, but goes into the pre-laid track, potentially setting up the Surrey for later. It's going to run a bunch of trains. Yep, all four. 190, pays it. So now it's my job to rust those twos. I'm not really using the twos for anything, and the Georgetown has a good number of them. So I upgrade Charlottetown. Again, I'm very confident now that I'll get the Mount Stewart, so I'm just hoping to get some good runs for both of these companies. Run for 100, pay it, buy my 4, and another 4, and I think that forces caffeine, or sorry, it's not going to force him to because he has the GT trains. But I was doing my best to make these twos rust. So he could very easily shuffle trains, run the twos again, and then rust the twos with his GT if he wanted, which may be what we end up seeing. Okay, so he's going to just buy the 2 or the 5, which maybe could have been slightly more efficient. I think he, in retrospect, maybe would have wanted to run those twos one more time. Now, the Pier did have some twos as well, but I haven't really been doing a whole much with my 2 trains to date in this game. So I lay Mount Stewart track now because I know I'm going to be that president. And we are back around to the GT. GT is buying a 5 with the Hunslet, something that maybe could have held on to for a more lucrative train or to bail himself out if he was going to fall back trainless. But he buys it now. Looks like he's looking to get down into the Murray River or give the Murray River some runs at least. Runs for 180, pays it. Charlottetown, 4 trains, pretty nice. And just upgrading, tokening. I was a little bit worried about the GT somehow finding a way into Mount Stewart, but in retrospect, I think, again, because there's no straights in this game, I would have been quite safe not to lay this token and just save it for later. I run for 170, I pay that. Murray River is able to link up with his friend the GT, runs his 5 for 70, pays it, buys another 5 in the 6. So those 3s that I was running rust, but he has to rust one of his own as well. And I was running 4 trains, so I'm still okay. The Pier has a bunch of cash, but no train. So I think I just shuffle a train over. I do. I buy the 4 out. So Charlottetown still pretty flush with cash despite buying a bunch of trains and not having to withhold. And I think I stand by this strategy. I don't think I regret not running the Pier. Seems reasonable. So I have priority. I'm going to have to sell some stuff. And I will do my exchange and take the Mount Stewart. I was very worried here that if I didn't end up with 50% of the company, that I was going to lose the company to Vivijar if I had to sell a share. So if we back this up for a second, before I exchanged, he could buy a share and then exchange for 2 and it would be 40-40. He couldn't actually steal the presidency, but I was a little bit worried if I had to sell a share to float the Mount Stewart, that he would then just snag that presidency. It's a good presidency. So the problem with this was not so much the exchange share. The problem was that it really limited my par price for the Mount Stewart because I couldn't sell any shares in the Charlottetown. I could only minimally float the Mount Stewart. I would have loved to have floated it for 74, but just didn't have enough cash. And it was important to me that I take this presidency at this opportunity, obviously, since I've laid all this track with the Pier. Otherwise, Vivijar would have been, I'm sure, more than happy to snack that up. He buys a Murray River. I was surprised at the time that he wasn't floating, but he didn't feel the need. Caffeine sells the Murray River, and he goes back and floats. He floats the Surrey. He has set up a bunch of track for it with the GT, so not unreasonable. And because I have the um, lower number, even when the Mount Stewart and the Surrey float, I will still maintain control of the pier. The pier hasn't been all that relevant this game, but it is feeding me, $160 or $80 every operating round, so not unreasonable to keep it if possible. I'm going to go ahead and just keep floating the Mount Stewart. Vivijar is buying cheap shares that have been sold down, and the rest of the stock round, I believe, is just people buying their shares. And we are into operating round 5. Charlottetown's up just one train and doesn't have the greatest track to run it for just because of how windy everything is. But I will start heading over towards the offboard now that I have 2 companies that can potentially start running that track soon. I run my 4, and I think I press trains here to rust everybody else's trains. So I buy the 6 and a 2, and that will rust the GT's train before it gets to run. So he's stuck with just a single 5. Georgetown is upgrading his home again so that the Surrey has some options. Runs for 80, pays it, buys a 2 plus. The Murray River somehow has a ton of trains that I don't think I realized at the time. Making his way over towards the Surrey. Runs for 190, really nice revenue considering he controls 80% of that. He pays it, Surrey, a lot of cash. Lays his home, links up with the existing track, is under no pressure at all to tokens since I'm still blocked here, and he controls all 3 of these companies. It's a very siloed game. I'm in the center of the map, he's in the eastern half, and Vivijar is just watching from the sidelines. Buys a 5. Mount Stewart, first operation, and if we look at the train roster here, I'm looking at this rusting event. I don't have any 5s, I don't think. Yeah, so I'm looking at all these 5s that he's bought, and that's pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to make that a rusting event happen. I get into the offboard, or at least make progress towards it, and I'm going to rust those 5s. I'm very poor. I don't have a lot of cash between my 2 companies, but again, I'm seeing that there's 3 slots open in the tranche, so I'm guaranteed to be able to float a company, and I'm probably just going to keep paying out on the Charlottetown and then split it for the permanent train money. Pier is up, has 80 bucks, but nothing to do with it, so I just wait. Going to be buying about to rush train out of the Charlottetown at the end of this operating round. I link up with the offboard. Don't think I can run that just yet, but I will with a 3 train. Paying out 150, GT's up, upgrading Surrey, runs the 2 plus for 110, pays it, buys the 3 plus. Murray River, going to run for 90 and is actually withholding, and that will give him enough money to bring out the 4 plus, which is what we see. I was taken a little bit surprised by this exchange. I don't think that I had seen this before. I've only played this game, I don't know, like a dozen times or something. So I did not realize that when these privates rust that you still get the exchange share. I was hoping that he would lose out on these shares, but he did not. Anyway, Caffeine's in a little bit of a delicate situation. He's got 3 companies, and he's bought basically all of his treasury worth of trains already, facing down 3 new companies floating right as we're abutting the permanents. So a little bit of an interesting position for him. We'll see how he manages that. Surrey upgrades his home, first brown track, pays it, and can buy the last 4 plus, which he does. Which is interesting, right? So he's train locked himself, I think, in all 3 companies, right on the brink of the permanent trains. It's going to be a little bit inflexible for him in terms of actually affording and getting his permanent trains. Mount Stewart, upgrade Charlottetown just for the revenue. Runs for a pretty nice 280, especially since I have 90% of the revenue. Paying it, Pier, I think I just buy a 2 plus um, because I'm assuming it's going to rust. Yeah, so I give 160 to the Charlottetown, and now I'm in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that Vivijar doesn't sell my Charlottetown down before I can split. Um, but in reality, I know that there's no way I'm not dropping down at least once before I split. So he does sell out, gets a lot of cash for that. And then he is going to be starting a company with the bank, actually. So he starts the Summerside um, and gets a little bonus into the bank since usually you can only buy one share. He's buying two here. It's risky if you don't have the peer share, but of course he does. The reason I say that is because if somebody starts to buy this, they can take the presidency before you can take the presidency, and then they control a company with 20% of the bank in it and can just dump it on the bank at any time they want. Anyway, so I split the Charlottetown, no surprises, and I'm going to give it the token on the Mount Stewart home. That way it can run into Charlottetown, and my Charlottetown company is still able to run into the off boards here. I don't give it any cash, and that's it. Caffeine's up now, and I was expecting him to float, but he instead is going to buy his own GT, which gives Vivijar the opportunity to float again. So he also floats the Alberton, and the other two players were making a big deal of this at the time that the Alberton had floated. I think they were worried about the pier lasting till late with me having 100% of it, but I think the odds of me actually taking advantage of that were very low, so I wasn't too excited by this either way. But it is unfortunate that Vivijar got to float two companies. Again, he's playing the long-term game, the long game here with share density, so getting presidencies on top of his Union Bank is a little bit problematic. It is nice that both of these companies, the Summerside and the Alberton, don't really have track laid for it. Alberton, literally nothing. Summerside, pretty minimal. So at this stage in the game, I'm still feeling pretty good. Vivijar is, leading in net worth compared to me, but he's just invested, his whole portfolio in two companies that are not going to run one time, and then I'm assuming the runs are going to be pretty bad for a while until he has the opportunity to lay track. So this leaves me to buy shares, and I'm buying the GT. I just want to sell it down because I'm assuming it's going to fall back trainless at some point, and I want it to not be over this ledge by the time it does that. Selling people down on this ledge, or just on ledges in general, has a really significant impact on their long-term net worth because they have to float up over the ledge before they can start moving right again. So it's like kind of a double whammy. I also noticed that by selling him down, I'm going to be able to rust his 2 before it runs, which is always nice. So I take a little detour here and just buy a share so I can sell it. Caffeine is still, well, he's not able to float at all, so he's going to pressure the Union Bank owned presidency to see if he can steal that. Vivijar is going to defend, which leaves me time to do my little trash that I had set up for myself. Caffeine going to go back and buy one of my shares, so now he's pressuring my presidency. Vivijar sticking with the Summerside. I'm buying my Charlottetown because I want to make sure it has at least $500 to out of pocket the 7. I am falling back trainless as a result of feeding it the cash in the pier. And in retrospect, that was probably a mistake. I probably should have left the train in there so that I didn't have to fall back. I could have still split and still capitalized my company. Maybe it would be a little bit less likely that Vivijar would have sold out, and then I guess he could have pressured for the presidency of the Charlottetown since he was nearly as many shares as I am. But yeah, in retrospect, maybe I should have left the 2 in there. I think the pier had $160 or something that I wanted to shuffle over. I could have put that money into the Mount Stewart. It also had a 2 train and would not have had to fall back. That probably would have been strictly better. All right. Vivijar is now floated on the Summerside, so for a brief period of time, I have sole control of the pier. I'm going to buy another treasury share here. Again, just making sure I have at least $500. Vivijar buying his Alberton now. And I have now fully capitalized the Charlottetown. And now that I'm looking at it, yeah, the $160 was not necessary for me to afford a 7 train, and I fell back unnecessarily. We were just talking about how bad it is for the GT to eventually fall back, and when it's on the ledge, it's going to be, basically just as bad for the Charlottetown to fall back here instead of um, paying out and just continuing towards the right. But hindsight's 2020. So Caffeine's passing. Vivijar still has some actions to take. He's going to float the Alberton, and I think I'm basically done for the stock round. And one last share for Vivijar. Great. So we're into operating round 6. Looking at the game state for a moment, net worth is very, very close. I'm trailing by $40, give or take. Share count, I am right neck and neck with Caffeine, and Vivijar has a 2-share lead by virtue of the Union Bank. However, 9 of his shares are not paying at all this operating round. So narrowly ahead in shares, but it's not an incredible lead. I, however, am falling back as well, so maybe his lead is a little more significant than what I'm alluding to. And then one thing I neglected to mention is that I ended up not floating the Cornwall. I was feeling pretty confident that we were going to see a D train come out, and I just didn't really want to out of pocket, $150 worth of D train for it to just run 4 or 5 times. Maybe a mistake. I don't know. If we look at the map position, the Cornwall branch, decent map, right? Can get into Charlottetown, token that to preserve runs, and then can start making moves west here, or sorry, east here, try and get a decent D run. Also, could have just bought the D train in the Charlotte branch, or whatever that branch is. What is it? Cornwall branch. And then shuffled it into the Charlottetown, and then the Charlottetown's going to have a good D run since it has this offboard and then can start heading east. But in retrospect, I mean, not in retrospect, but in reality, I didn't float it. So my share lead is actually worse than what I was alluding to earlier because I only have 14 real shares. So I am trailing in shares. So anyway, yeah, it's odd that you float a company and then you par a company and then leave it unfloated with near permanent train money in it. But at the time, it seemed to make sense. Maybe in retrospect, that's why the game ends up way it does. So I'm upgrading my own track, and I will buy a train out of the Mount Stewart, and this is that $160 that I had in the pier. So yes, I think that is a huge mistake. I should definitely have not have fallen back on the Charlottetown. I should have just put the money in the Mount Stewart directly instead of doing this roundabout way. All right, so I buy the 7. The Georgetown has a 3+, but that's going to be short-lived, I would assume. Running for 220 and gets to pay it. Murray River, on the other hand, has the 4+. They rust at the same time, but the Murray River, or the 4+, has a guaranteed run. So his runs are going to be pretty nice right now. And he has a little bit more security there. Running for 370. Surrey, another 4+. Running for 270, and he actually withholds this. As noted before, he doesn't have any permanent trains, and he really exhausted his treasuries in the last operating round, so was expecting to see some withholds here. New company on the summer side. He is going to head up north towards his co-company, the Alberton, and he'll buy a 7. Alberton heading down south to, again, just create runs for both of his companies. Also buying a 7. Mount Stewart with a 3+. Has a pretty darn good run since I'm able to hit England and whatever this hex is. So running for 180. Is that really? I suppose that because it's a plus train, this is functionally 70, just like England is. So it doesn't matter which one of those I hit. But I am trying to eventually get some better trains in this company so I can run this whole loop. A D train would be pretty nice here. Pays out 180, and I think I was going to be just a little bit shy. Yeah, I was $20 off buying that 7 train. And then I was also a little bit worried that by buying the 7, we may just have Caffeine stall out here since he would be the only one that was in a position to buy a D, and he's really not incentivized to rust his own trains. So I was kind of hoping that Caffeine would be the one to buy the last 7 and then I could buy a D train. And that way we wouldn't go another set of operating rounds. 6.2, Georgetown still running the 3 plus and is upgrading his own track to run for 230. He pays it. Charlottetown running a permanent train. I'm just working on trying to bypass some dits so that I can take better advantage of my 7. And I run it for 240. Murray River, going to have monstrous revenue here. 410, pays it. Surrey is going to run for 290 and withholds again. He buys the last 7. So now at this point, if my run was good enough, I could bring out a D train, which would trigger the end of the game. But I think I end up being just short. So I run for 200, which 200 is not 245. So I am $45 short of buying the first D. I pay it out. Summerside, first run for him. It's going to be a piddling $90. Alberton running for 110. And then the last operating round in this set, if the D train doesn't come out here, everybody that's not the Union Bank is going to be a little bit miffed. So we got to see how the D train comes out. He is running again for 230. He pays it. Near permanent train money there. He's going to shuffle $100 into the MR, and that will allow the Murray River to bring out the D, which is pretty poor, pretty bad news for me, right? Like, yeah, Caffeine's rusting a lot of his own trains. He's not going to be able to run his 4 plus, but my company also doesn't have a permanent train, so I'm going to fall back. So I was just a little bit short on the D train, and I'm going to have to fall back on that company as a result. I see that I'm going to be running a D, and there's a lot of great track up here, whereas, the tokens from the Surrey, the GT, and the Murray are going to be kind of blocked at Hunter River. So I'll always have good runs for my companies, and I give him access to Charlottetown, sure, but I think it behooves me to create a nice D run for the Mount Stewart. I run for 270. Murray River upgrades peaks. Not sure what he was doing there. Runs for 290, pays it, and then we see the D train come out. One operation before the Mount Stewart, so close, but close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. I upgrade the Mount Stewart just so that the Summerside or the Alberton didn't get it. And I run, I don't run, I buy D, so the end game is going to be in operating round 7. Summerside is able to have enough cash as a result of its market shares to link up with England, so its runs are going to get a lot better now. It's running for 240, which is pretty good compared to what the other people are running for. So it looks like Vivijar is able to rescue his portfolio. This area of the map is so strong in the end game. I mean, you could, in theory, run down to Cape Tormentine as well, and you've had poor runs all game, and then all of a sudden you're totally rehabilitated just because of these offboards. But regardless, 240. Alberton upgrading his home and tokening, so he's going to run for just a little bit more than the Summerside. Pays it. Surrey, last company, upgrades Almira, tokens it, and is going to run his 7 for 240, which he pays. So a couple of problems in that last operating round. We talked about the Charlottetown falling back unnecessarily because I was negligent with my peer buy over. Missed out on the Mount Stewart timing of the D run. I don't think that was really something that I could control. Just kind of unfortunate the way it worked out. And then most importantly, I am 7 shares off of my cert limit, but I've only got $370 because I had to out of pocket $200 for the Mount Stewart D train. So I'm looking at Caffeine. He's 7 shares away, but he's got twice my liquidity into this stock round. So at this point in the game, I'm pretty pessimistic. I see that I'm $500 behind. Granted, Caffeine has a lot of train liability coming up here, but he's going to be able to buy a lot more shares than I can in this stock round. And then Vivijar, I'm $500 behind him. He has no train liability. and he has enough cash between the Union Bank and his presidency to, very quickly exceed the number of shares I have. So I'm a little bit nervous here, but I'm going to play it out, and hopefully the D run on the Mount Stewart will rescue me. Um, Caffeine is going to buy the Mount Stewart. Everybody sees that that's pretty attractive. Bad news for me that I already own 60% of it. And I will instead go for, I believe, the Murray River because it is also a D train and it's cheap. So I want cheap shares because I can't really afford too many of them. Vivajar sees that logic. He goes for it. Caffeine goes for it as well. So that's sold out. That was short lived. And I also was doing the math and I realized that I needed, I forget the exact number, but I figured I could afford one more share and then float the Cornwall. I was still at this point hemming and hawing about whether or not I was going to float that company. So I buy one more share here, and it is the Surrey. And I think I was like dollar perfect. If you do the math, I think that 232 is exactly what you need for 4 shares of 58. That wasn't really planning on my part. It was just lucky. So I buy the Surrey, see that it's got a permanent train, decent runs, and it just happened to leave me enough money. Vivajar will sell that out. Caffeine is buying my Mount Stewart. I'm a little bit surprised that Vivajar didn't buy the Mount Stewart. Both of these players, actually, I'm surprised that they didn't buy the Mount Stewart. But they went for the Murray River instead. So now it's decision time. Am I going to just buy paying shares or am I going to float the Cornwall branch? And I'm looking at my net worth here, and the game's going to end in 3 ORs, and I just decide I don't think that the Cornwall branch is really going to pay for itself relative to these other shares since it's only going to run twice and everything else is going to run 3 times. Plus, I would have to out of pocket a D for $150. So ultimately, I just decide to buy paying shares. I buy the GT, and I think my plan here is to sell it down under this ledge again, which in retrospect, maybe there were other things that I should have been prioritizing, just buying cheap shares instead of buying the Georgetown. Is Caffeine really my opponent here? Maybe not. So maybe I should have, bought paying shares to deny them to the other players and then let Vivajar decide whether or not it was worth selling down the Georgetown. But regardless, I waste a turn in the stock round buying a share that I'm planning to sell. Vivajar takes the opportunity to buy an MS. That's a share I couldn't have bought anyways, so no lost thing for me there. Caffeine will buy the Charlottetown, another share that I couldn't have bought, and then I sell the GT, and I buy. I declined to buy anything. That's a mistake. I definitely screwed up there. I don't think I realized that in real time when I was playing the game. But I definitely should have been buying shares in the Alberton and the Summerside. I'm eventually going to buy them, so I lost another share by doing that. Vivajar buys the Summerside, Caffeine, Charlottetown that's sold out and floating up. I now go back and buy the Alberton. Could have had another share there if I'd been paying attention. Vivajar buys the Alberton, Caffeine buying his GT, which is kind of surprising to me. It will have good runs and good share appreciation when it runs, but again, it's only going to run once, twice compared to 3 times for everybody else. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but not complaining because that allows me to buy another paying share. And the reason I bought the Summerside was because I believe it's operating after the Alberton, so I figured that oh no, it's not. Okay, later I will buy the Alberton instead of the Summerside because it's operating later, and I assumed any track upgrades would affect the Alberton more than it would affect the Summerside. The reason I buy the Summerside here is because I see that Vivajar cannot buy Alberton anymore, and I want to buy shares he can buy so that hopefully I can get another share on the Alberton at some point. He buys the Summerside, Caffeine, buys the GT again, which that worked out for me. I'm able to buy the Alberton. And Vivajar does something clever here. He's going to sell a share so that he can buy it with his Union Bank, and then he'll use the cash to buy a GT share. So he picks that up. That means that he didn't give a share away towards Caffeine. Now, granted, Caffeine was already at a cert limit, so he wasn't going to be able to buy it anyways, but maybe I could have sold something to buy it. Caffeine will pass, and then Vivajar is able to buy that last GT share. So that was clever. He was able to get a Union Bank share protected, basically. All right, so that brings us to the final operating set. And in terms of net worth, I'm trailing, but again, I'm not behind that much. $500 Caffeine guaranteed to buy a train, right off the bat. So he'll be back down with me, and then it's just going to come down to the revenue of these companies. Vivijar has 25 shares. I have 19 because, again, two of these are fake. And Caffeine has 23. So Vivijar, definitely has a big lead in terms of net worth on both of me and Caffeine, and he has the most shares. But the open question, at least it was an open question while we were playing, is are his revenues going to be high enough to overcome the D runs that Caffeine and I will have? And the only way to know would be to play it out. So let's move ahead. Charlottetown upgrading its home, running at 7 for 340, pays it. GT has to fall back and will out of pocket the D. So again, now if we look at the net worth, you can see why I wasn't all that worried about trailing Caffeine, because I realized his net worth was a little inflated. The problem is that I've run a company, Vivijar hasn't, and he's still $200 ahead of me. So he runs the Summerside now, upgrades Alberton. It's going to run for 280, and then the Alberton will run itself and run for 280 as well. So now he's run both of his companies. His revenue is $60 less than mine. He owns basically nothing of the Charlottetown, one Union Bank and share. And it's hard for me to predict at this stage in the game, whether or not my revenues can be enough. Peaks gets upgraded, and he's going to token Mount Stewart, which in theory hurts the Charlottetown, but doesn't hurt the Mount Stewart, of course. Runs for 330. Vivijar has 3 shares of this company. I only have 1, so that's helping Vivijar. Surrey, running for 270, pays it. Now the moment of truth. What is the Mount Stewart going to run for? So I am working on bypassing Mount Stewart for my Charlottetown. And then with my D, I run for 650, which is pretty darn good. But if you then look at the net worths, you'll see that I'm only running for, roughly $100 more than Vivijar, and he's ahead of me by $400. So with 2 operating rounds left, it's just not going to happen. So we don't have to do the rest of the game. It's not that exciting, but Vivijar does take it. It was a close game. I end up in last, narrowly trailing Caffeine. But I had a lot of fun playing this game. I think 71 is a very fun 18xx. I encourage everyone to try it. I think there's a lot of life to it. Not every game's the same, and there's a lot of things to be explored. Looking back at this game, I think there are certainly several serious misplays that I made that, had I played better, maybe I could have won. I think that a $400 lead from Vivijar is a little bit hard for me to overcome, even if the Charlottetown doesn't fall back. So, for instance, if the Charlottetown is at 185 instead of 167, although I guess really I should be saying 203 instead of 167, because when you fall back, you end up 2 places further left. So if we add $240 to my net worth, on the Charlottetown, I'd be much closer, but I don't think it would be enough. So as much as I was complaining about falling back on the Charlottetown unnecessary, I don't think it actually changed the outcome of the game. But, if I had done that better and then maybe one other thing a little bit better, maybe I could have the game. I don't mean this to be sour grapes. Vivijar played very well and deserves the win. I'm just theory crafting after the fact, since that's what we do on this channel. Anyway, this was a real fun game. I hope to play more 71 in the future, and I hope to bring it to the channel. Thanks for watching.